My next guest is Dawn Harris. Dawn is a passionate and energetic educator who lives by the motto relationships first. Her enthusiasm for creating connections is infectious, and she thrives on the opportunity to learn about the things that motivate and inspire teachers and students alike. In her roles as a secondary language arts educator, gifted and talented teacher, and associate professor of teacher education, Dawn continuously strives to bring authentic and engaging learning experiences to students of all ages. Throughout her career as an educator, Dawn has taught in urban, rural, and suburban districts, meeting the needs of children from a wide range of backgrounds and cultures. In addition to general ELA coursework, Dawn's classroom teaching experience also includes teaching English as a second language, creative writing, film studies, and response to intervention instruction. Dawn's professional teaching experiences have been showcased in scholarly journals at local, regional, national, and international conferences. Prior to becoming an educator, Dawn spent more than 10 years in marketing and publishing in the private sector. This experience gives Dawn insight into the skills and knowledge students need in order to be better prepared for a competitive global workforce once they leave high school. This insight also helps Dawn's work in developing veteran, novice, and pre-service teachers as they seek to educate students for tomorrow's work today. Dawn is also a licensed curriculum instruction and professional development specialist, and her goal in all things is to support educators with planning learning that ignites curiosity and that engages and inspires students in a way that impacts their growth and achievement every single day. Dawn's first book, Plan Like a Pirate, was released in 2021. Welcome to the podcast, Dawn.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be on the show with you today. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Do we even talk about COVID? I mean, that's been the past few years, right? We're all getting through that now. But I think, gosh, I really feel like I don't know that I would say I'm in the trenches right now, but I think coming out of COVID for educators and figuring out what, we felt like it was cliche for a while, that new normal that we're trying to figure out, what does that look like? What is normal now post-COVID, and managing so many differences in the classroom learning environment. Kids have figured out through, coming out of COVID that they know their learning styles better than ever. They know what suits them best as learners, as they've now been exposed to a variety of ways to engage with learning. And so I think as an educator, I'm in the classroom actively teaching. I'm trying to figure out differentiation post-COVID is different than differentiation pre-COVID. What does it mean? So we're not just talking about meeting kids where they are academically, but really and truly embracing defining learning for every student based on their learning style, their intelligences, different modalities, those kinds of things. It adds a brand new layer of complexity to our job. One that's fun, it's wide open, right? But this is what truly calls for us to allow for student-led learning in the classroom, to let go and let students lead.
Yeah, and as I talked about in your bio, there's a lot that you do in your classes to work with, what students need and the skills that they need to prepare them for post-college or post-secondary work. Let's talk first about your background in marketing and how that has helped you become a better educator, and kind of what made you transition from that sector to education.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. I always get excited to talk about my past because I really feel like my life before teaching prepped me in every way for this. I was in marketing and publishing. I worked for the Yellow Pages. We all remember the Yellow Pages, if we're of a certain age anyways. But, working in that kind of an environment, it was a sales environment, it was a production environment, it was a marketing environment. You have to have multiple skill sets to be able to navigate that work, dealing with people, helping people to learn, helping, work through projects and goals. And it was a strategic job. I led people in that position. I taught people in that position. And so when, it was 2008, 2009, with the kind of economic kind of fallout that we had, I had to make the decision, was I going to continue in the field that I was in after the company that I worked for really disbanded? Or was I going to do something else? And I really felt like moving into teaching. I'd been inspired by a dear friend of mine who had gone into education. He's a phenomenal leader and educator to this day. But I felt like, I think maybe I can make the shift. And I joke often, and many people have heard me say this. I said, if I can train sales reps I can teach high school kids, right? And it turns out that actually teaching high school kids is a little more challenging. I'm doing it, but but yes, it did help me going into the classroom, especially later in life. My son was moving into his teenage years when I went into the classroom. Understanding kids as a parent um, helped having what we all call in our classrooms as teachers now real world experience also helped me to know what students needed in order to as you mentioned, leave the classroom and be successful in whatever it is they do. We know that not all of our students are, off to college. They're not all college bound. Some are going straight into the workforce. And what are those transferable skills that they need that we can help them with in our classrooms that will aid them in being successful when they do leave? So.
Yeah, and I know for people like myself and yourself who have written books, having that marketing experience helps a lot when you're wanting to get your work out there as well. So I'm sure that helps you when you're promoting your book, promoting your sessions, things like that.
It's a little different. We have to, we're wordsmiths and we're creators, right? All of that is really, really important. The messaging is important, but more than anything, I think, and Dana, you can certainly attest to this, the authenticity is key. People have to know that we're coming from, a genuine place and that we really are striving to help folks with the work that we're doing and not just putting something out there that we don't feel is a value or that we're just trying to push something on folks. And I think that's one thing that I have found being friends with many educators and eduleaders, like yourself and others, is that we're coming from that place. And I think that's what helps us to establish those relationships that we have, whether it's with, our peers in the field or whether it's our professional relationships with the schools and districts and educators that we serve. That authenticity piece is extremely important to our success.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned in the bio that you currently are teaching English language arts, and you've taught a variety of learners, gifted, talented English language learners. Tell me about the courses that you're teaching this year and what you're focusing on helping your students learn.
Yeah, I have some really great classes this year. I'm responsible again this year for guiding grade 10 students, those college prep kiddos through the curriculum, just helping them to just get onto that junior year. Sophomore year is a rough year. It's like we're getting everything in that we didn't get in before. Kids have big tests in Ohio in that year, and it's just a lot of chaos and helping them to navigate that process. For me, without being just wholly focused on the test. I don't like that language. We don't use that language. It's about helping students to learn to embrace the need for understanding the things in the English language, reading and writing content that are going to help them be successful, whether they take a test or not. So that's always exciting. I've taught year 10 for quite a few years. And then I also teach gifted and talented year 11 juniors. So we are in the midst, deep in prep for ACT. ACT is coming up in a couple of weeks. They'll be taking the test. And so that's really getting them acclimated to the structure of the test, what they can expect to see. And in year 10, what's really exciting when we're not doing that, that I love teaching year 11, we really focus deeply on critical thinking and how do we use what we have gained in terms of knowledge in our class and transferring that and using that to better society or for some greater good, and teaching those year 11 students how to be content creators. They need to be savvy with creating content for whatever it is that they're going to do in their future. Kids are on TikTok and other social media platforms sharing their videos and things, but how do we help them craft messaging that is going to serve some purpose that is greater? And so for example, we've been using the Crucible. We've been looking at current events through the lens of the Crucible. And my students they've been working on and are actually finishing up a project what in the world do I do with the crucible, right? We read this story. What is this craziness? I can see the connections. It all makes sense. Now, what am I supposed to do with it? What are my obligations once I have this information? So we've talked about who we are as creators. What are our hobbies? Do we like to make music? Do we like to create artwork? Do we like to write stories? What are the things that we are passionate about, and how can we take that knowledge and turn it into something else that's going to help someone else to grow? And that's really exciting to watch that unfold, because when you give kids this opportunity, really without parameters, there are no parameters. You say, what are you going to make? What are you going to create? And you tell me why you chose that. They really get engaged, and they feel empowered and in control of their learning. And I think, and other listeners to your show know that when we as adults are in charge of designing something, creating something brand new, that's a real opportunity for us to grow ourselves, and to see kids engage in that is really an exciting thing.
Mm-hmm. And also finding new ways to teach some of that material that, is on the curriculum, right, every year, and to engage the students with learning
Absolutely.
of the literature.
So
your book, Plan Like a Pirate, has been out for about a year and a half. So tell me about what you talk about in your breakout sessions when people hear you speak about your book, and why it would be beneficial for them to grab a copy of it.
Thanks. Yeah, Playing Like a Pirate. Gosh, it was such a fun book to write. I've shared that it is a manifesto of sorts for me. Early in the book, I talk about my journey to becoming the teacher I am today. Like, I was not, I tell people I went to school with now, when I run into them, like, well, what are you doing? I'm a teacher. Like, what? You're what? Why? How did that even happen? I was not a great student in high school. I kind of lost my interest in education about the middle of my elementary school years, and it just wasn't fun. I just did not have a great childhood, and school wasn't any better for that matter. So, I had a wonderful teacher that I met in my junior year of high school, and she really kind of changed the trajectory of my life. And it wasn't until I became a teacher that I truly realized the impact that she had. I knew Julie was just an awesome person, and she loved kids so much. She was just really good to us and taught us so much about life. But I didn't realize how important what she was doing was in her role as a teacher. And when I became a teacher myself, I was recalling all of those experiences that I had, and what were the best and what were the worst, and what did I want to be. And so Plan Like a Pirate shares a lot of that. But it's called Plan Like a Pirate, clearly. It talks about the importance of planning learning, and not lesson planning necessarily, but about what does it mean to craft a good learning experience for students? What things must be in there? How are we using technology purposely, for example? How are we including academic and content related vocabulary in our learning? How are we inviting kids to write and practice written expression every day? So there are about 8 different elements in the book that I discuss that really ask teachers, to think about these things as they put learning together. How are they going to embed each of those? And one of my favorite parts of the book is anti-racist teaching and learning. How do we create those learning environments where every student feels like they belong in that classroom setting? How do we help students to understand the structures that are in place that were originally created to oppress and to hold others back? And how do we dismantle those? What is our role in that? There's a piece on evaluations in there. How do we manage the evaluation process? Because we know every teacher loves the evaluation process, right? So how do we make that work for us and for our students? It was a really great, and I'll say, journey to be on, just writing that book and getting it in the shape that it is in now for others to go ahead and engage with, and hopefully learn from too, and bring some really great practices into their own classroom.
Mm-hmm. Did that take you a while? Was it something that you had in the works a long time before you contacted Dave Burgess?
Well, what's really interesting, that story is really unique, because I had written out probably, I would say, maybe 60 or 80 pages, something like that, I was calling it a book, and I had written it, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It was just kind of sitting around on my computer. I printed it out, put a copy on the corner of my desk. And it just so happened I was in a chat well, it's been a few years now. And I had mentioned, someone had asked what was an accomplishment in a Twitter chat. What was an accomplishment of yours that you want to, kind of just give yourself a shout out about? And I mentioned it. And then that Shelly Burgess and I had gotten connected, and she asked about it. And next thing you know, it was going to be Playing Like a Pirate. And so here I am, these years later. It was not difficult for me to write. Those initial pages really formed a good solid framework for the book. And it was just really fleshing that out. What does it look like if I go into detail in each of these parts? But I always share with everyone, my favorite part of the book writing process was editing, and everyone thinks I'm crazy when I say that, but it's just that polishing, that, just bringing your book to the condition that it's going to be in when everybody else gets to read it. For me, was really exciting. I wanted it to be the best that it could be. So, I hope folks enjoy it. It's been an exciting opportunity for me to be able to share with others my personal story in education. We all have those stories, and hopefully others can just gain a little bit from reading that book as well.
So we were both at Teach Better 22, and the Dave Burgess authors had a booth there. And, I saw you guys around taking pictures a lot. And they just mentioned they're going to host Teach Better 23 in October. I think it's the 17th or the 20th and 21st, I think. The same place in Akron, Ohio. And we're both planning on going to that as well. I know you tend to speak at several conferences throughout the year. So what are some of the ones that you're planning on speaking at this summer?
Golly, this summer is going to be kind of busy. I know right now I'm going to be at the Ohio Teacher Leadership Summit. I'll be talking about PLNs and creating book studies, professional development book studies in Google Classroom. I am going to be at ISTE. I'm really excited. I am not presenting. This will be my first trip to ISTE because I haven't been before. I think I really just need to take it all in. I've heard that it is just overwhelming and exciting. And of course, I want to make time to see everyone. Of course, going to conferences is really great to get out and share your message, but to be able to connect with people that we only get to see, so exciting. So I'll definitely be at ISTE. I'll be at Teach Better for sure. Akron is near and dear to my heart. I lived there for a while when I was younger. I have a lot of family there. So getting the opportunity to go back, not just to see my family, but now to go back for Teach Better is really thrilling. Again, being able to connect and share messaging with others. So it'll be a busy summer. I have some things going on in my district as well that I'll be hosting, prepping for our back to school opening days, and with gifted and talented educators. I'll be working with our school therapists on some diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and just doing some general differentiation kind of strategy teaching inside my own district. So it'll be busy. I'll be out and about. And of course, I'm always online. I've just various work I do with other of my Twitter pals with different districts across the country, and even some international things we've done. So always busy.
Yeah. You definitely have a wealth of experience to share with other educators, and just helping them as they navigate, like you said, this post-COVID reality of doing the differentiation and some of the strategies and teaching before you don't really get the same results, right? So it's finding new ways of engaging our students. Well, we've had a great conversation today around your book, some of your speaking, and what you're currently doing in the classroom. Out of everything we talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
I think more than anything, don't be afraid to get creative with how you invite students into learning. And I think as educators, we do a pretty good job at being creative, but I think it's okay to even go beyond that and give students even more autonomy than you already have. Ask them what they need. How do they see themselves learning in your classroom? What works best for them? I think sometimes too, we tend to think we have to make all the decisions as educators. It's up to us because we're the professionals. But sometimes professionals have to just let go and let others lead. And I think as long as we have developed the kind of classroom culture that students know the importance of, their education and, what it means to learn, then I think we can give them the freedom that they need to start figuring out how they best internalize, obtain, internalize, and even transfer the information that they gain from learning within our classrooms.
Yeah, I like that. Internalize, obtain, and transfer. Yeah, it's really, that's kind of our goal as educators, have them not only, retain the information, but also be able to transfer what they're teaching to, like you said, the post-secondary skills. Where can people connect with you and find you online?
Definitely on Twitter at dharriseds. I'm pretty much on Twitter daily, connecting in a lot of spaces there. I co-moderate the Lead Like a Pirate Twitter chat on Saturday mornings at 10:30 with Beth Huff, Shelley Burgess, and Tracy Browder. I'm usually always in the TLAP chat on Monday nights. Then online, my website, educationundone.com, has loads of information there for folks who want to learn more about the Essential Eight and my framework for learning, anti-racism education, resource library. There's a gifted education resource library. I've got several libraries out there for some different areas folks may be interested in. Definitely check that out. You can catch all of my podcast episodes, like this one will be on there as well, and just kind of get some more information about what Dawn Harris is all about. Plan Like a Pirate is on Amazon. If you just type that in, you can grab your copy there and email me if you need me, dawn@educationundone.com. I am happy to help. I love dropping in book clubs too. So I've quite a few groups who've read Plan Like a Pirate together, and I'll be happy to hop in and talk with your group if you all are reading that.
Great, great. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the Out of the Trenches podcast today and learning more about your work and your book. Thank you so much.
Thank you.